Chapter 1, 7 months pregnant. The scorching heat felt like volcanic lava, threatening to consume her body. The only savior she had was the man in front of her. She clung tightly to his cool, marble-like skin, and her survival instinct ultimately made her give up resistance. Pain accompanied pleasure, rising like fireworks that didn't cease in her mind, leaving her feeling like a lonely boat in a blazing sea. Floating and sinking, she couldn't extricate herself. "Hey, wake up. It's quite chilly here. Don't fall asleep and catch a cold." The pressure on her shoulder made Ningxi wake up suddenly. Her bewildered eyes met the concerned gaze of the nurse in front of her, and she blushed, feeling embarrassed as she averted her gaze. Damn it, it had been a while since that night when she got drunk and had that confusing encounter with Suyen. She sometimes had flashes of that night in her dreams. Thank goodness she was too intoxicated to remember much, otherwise, she wouldn't know how to face her brother Yen. The nurse saw that she had regained consciousness and handed her a sheet of paper. "You forgot to take your prenatal checkup report. Dr. Jiong wants you to come back next week." Ningxi took the report with a sweet smile and carefully placed it in her bag. Suyen was returning from an overseas business trip today, and Ningxi couldn't help but feel nervous about their upcoming meeting. The place where Suyen had been was quite remote, so she had only managed to contact him when she was over 7 months pregnant. Thinking about Suyen's shock when he found out about her pregnancy, Ningxi felt a bit anxious. Was it because men were generally less prepared when it came to their first child? The doctor had reassured her that it was normal. But, she couldn't be the one to initiate the topic of marriage, could she? As she left the hospital, the sun blazed overhead. Ningxi struggled to support her waist and was about to hail a taxi when a bright red sports car suddenly rushed toward her. Ningxi's heart skipped a beat, and she took several steps back just in time. She heard the screeching of tires as the red sports car grazed the edge of her dress and came to a sudden halt. Ningxi was terrified, her heart almost stopping, and she barely managed to stay on her feet. She saw Ningxuelo, with her long wavy hair, wearing a tight red dress that accentuated her curves, getting out of the car with a smirk. "Ningxuelo, have you lost your mind?" Ningxuelo looked at her, smiling with a hidden meaning, hugging her arms, walking gracefully with a sway, and stood in front of Ningxi. Taking advantage of her high heels, she proudly looked down at Ningxi's heavily pregnant belly. "What's wrong? Are you afraid I'll bump into the wild seed in your belly?" Ningxi instinctively protected her belly and took a step back, looking at her warily. "Ningxuelo, don't go too far." Even though she knew that Ningxuelo had always been hostile toward her, Ningxi had never expected her to say something so malicious. "I've gone too far? I think you're the one who has gone too far. Getting drunk and fooling around with a random guy, getting pregnant, and now you want Suyen to be the father? TSK. Ningxi, do you have no shame?" Ningxi was taken aback. "What are you talking about? Oh, you really believe that the guy you slept with that night was Suyen, don't you?" Ningxuelo laughed, her tone mocking. "You keep saying you grew up with Suyen, childhood sweethearts and all that. You don't even know what his physique is like?" The more Ningxi listened, the paler her face became. Standing under the scorching sun, she felt ice cold. Yes, that man from that night. She had assumed that Suyen had become more robust since coming of age. Now, thanks to Ningxuelo's malicious reminder, she suddenly realized that apart from his physique, there were indeed many differences between that night's man and Suyen. Chapter 2, The Stranger's Illegitimate Child. "I'll tell you the truth. That night, you drank the alcohol I spiked, and you were so unsatisfied. I kindly found 2 strong men for you. Who would have thought that you were so ignorant and barged into a stranger's room, not to mention being so impolite?" Ningxuelo spoke with a disgusted tone. "Brother Yen is just too kind-hearted. He was afraid that you wouldn't be able to handle it when you woke up, so he claimed that it was him that night. You?" Ningxi was so angry that she trembled, and at this point, she couldn't hold back any longer. She grabbed Ningxuelo's wrist and said, "Why are you treating me like this? Why? Haven't you harmed me enough?" Ningxuelo, who had her eyebrows raised, was about to push Ningxi away. However, when she saw Suyen behind Ningxi, her voice immediately softened, and she looked pitiful. "Sister, I know I was wrong. If you want to scold or hit me, do it to me, but don't blame Brother Yen." Ningxi was momentarily stunned. The next moment, she saw Ningxuelo suddenly fall to the ground, as if she had been pushed. "Ningxi, what are you doing?" A reproachful voice came from behind her. Ningxi turned around in surprise and saw Suyen, his expression icy. Suyen walked past her and helped Ning Zuelo up. Zuelo, are you okay? Ning Zuelo almost hung her entire body on Suyen. Brother Yen, it wasn't intentional. I really know I was wrong. Now, it's all my fault for causing my sister trouble. Alright, I'll handle everything. Suyen patted Ning Zuelo's shoulder and told her to go. I'll explain things to Ningxi. Ningxi's mind went blank as she watched Suyen approaching her and saw his mouth moving as he spoke. He talked for a long time. He talked about their childhood together, his struggle with his love for Ning Zuelo, his anger when he found out that Ning Zuelo had framed her, his shock and guilt when he learned about Ningxi's pregnancy, and his acceptance of Ning Zuelo's apology. Finally, he said, Ningxi, I'm sorry, but I can't marry you. It's not because of that night or this child, but because I can't let Zuelo down again, and I don't want to deceive my own feelings. These past few months, he had been overseas with Ning Zuelo, and after spending day and night together, they had become inseparable. Even though he had acknowledged his relationship with Ningxi that night to make amends, he had long since chosen Ning Zuelo in his heart. So when he learned about Ningxi's pregnancy, even though he didn't want to, he immediately went to Ning's house and told her parents everything, as well as the truth about that night. So, Suyen, you knew from the beginning that it was Ning Zuelo who drugged me and took my purity? You claimed it was you that night to protect her? Ningxi, who had finally regained her voice, looked at Suyen with a dazed expression. Ningxi, Zuelo didn't do it on purpose. She's young and impulsive. Suyen tried to explain. And what about me? Ningxi looked up at Suyen, her face full of despair. Have you even considered my feelings for even a bit? Suyen didn't say anything. After a long silence, he reached out to touch Ningxi, but she pushed his hand away. Don't touch me. Ningxi suddenly burst into laughter. Living until now, Ningxi felt like she was living a joke. She had done extensive preparation and studying to pass the entrance exam and enter B University to be with Suyen in his city. She had given up her dreams of acting to please Suyen. She had left her foster parents behind and returned to the Ning family to ingratiate herself with these so-called high society people. And in the end, all she got was, I can't let Zuelo down. Ning Zuelo not only took her identity, took her biological parents, but now, she had also taken her beloved. Ning Zuelo was young, and her mistakes could be forgiven? Then, who would pay for her life? She didn't even know who the man from that night was. Ningxi covered her face, her body trembling as if sieved, sinking into the depths of despair. Suyen saw Ningxi walking aimlessly towards the road in a daze, lost in thought. He lost the cigarette between his fingers and was about to follow her when Ning Zuelo, who was behind him, pulled his sleeve. Brother Yen, where are you going? In the midst of Suyen's hesitation, there was a loud crash. Ningxi, who was crossing the pedestrian crossing, was thrown into the air and fell heavily to the ground. Help! Help! Someone hit a pregnant woman. The glaring lights blinded Ningxi, and she saw the blurry figures and the two faces that made her feel sick. The contractions and pain in her belly made her consciousness slowly slip away. She only blinked her eyes once, and the blood from her forehead surged into her eyes, washing over her, plunging her into darkness. Chapter 3, The Little Boy in the Bar. 5 years later. Eaton Bar, the deserted corridor on the top floor. Ningxi had spent the evening drinking with an investor and had a splitting headache. She had originally planned to find a quiet place to sober up, but unexpectedly, Changli had followed her, so she had to pull herself together and deal with her. What's up, Changjia? Have you signed up for the audition for the female lead in Tianxia? Changli, her agent, asked. Yes, why? Ningxi replied. You're not allowed to go tomorrow. Changli, as her agent, was now preventing her from auditioning for a role that was in high demand among major entertainment companies. Ningxi wasn't surprised by this at all. She raised an eyebrow and asked, Why? You went behind my back and took matters into your own hands. You dare to ask me why? Changli said, annoyed. The company has already arranged for Zuelo to audition, don't you know? This doesn't seem to conflict with the company's arrangements, Ningxi said with a sly smile. Did Ning Zuelo send you to find me? Is she afraid that an unknown 18th-tier actress like me will steal her role? Do you have the ability to steal Zuelo's role? That's just a delusion. Let me tell you, don't waste your efforts. The Ning family invested 3 million in this drama, and Zuelo has already been chosen for the role. Changli stated firmly. If that's the case, why are you so nervous? Ningxi asked. You are my artist, and you have to follow my arrangements. Changli said, acting as if it was a matter of course. Ah, so Changjia also knows that I'm your artist. Ningxi, I don't have time to argue with you. If you won't drink the toast, then you'll drink the penalty. As soon as she finished speaking, Ningxi felt a strong force pushing her into the bar's storage room next door, and her phone was taken away at the same time. There was a loud slam, and the door was closed firmly. The footsteps outside gradually faded away. Ningxi knew that calling for help was futile, so she remained silent, her expression indifferent, sitting on the ground by the door. When she first joined the company, Ningzuelo had shown some restraint, at most, letting Changli arrange some malicious supporting roles for her. Recently, she had become more outrageous, resorting to such low-level tricks. If she couldn't get the role this time, she would have to find a way to leave Starlight Entertainment. In the midst of her scattered thoughts, she suddenly heard a faint sound. Could there be a mouse? Ningxi looked in the direction of the sound and was stunned. Behind a pile of boxes, she saw a little boy. The boy looked about 4 or 5 years old, like a delicate porcelain doll, with soft, fair skin. He was huddled in the corner, trembling, and his pitch-black eyes were full of vigilance and caution. Why was there a child in the bar's storage room? Shouldn't there be no such unreliable guests bringing children to a bar? Hey, little guy, who are you? How did you get in here? Did you sneak in? Were you locked in by someone? Do you want some candy? After asking for a while, the child remained silent, just shivering even more, like a frightened little animal. So, Ningxi didn't continue talking, as it had nothing to do with her. The two of them, one adult and one child, peacefully occupied their respective corners. At this moment, the light bulb above suddenly flickered and then went out. In the darkness, Ningxi faintly heard the sound of chattering teeth. Upon closer inspection, it seemed like the sound of someone shivering. Ningxi chuckled and spoke to the little boy across from her, "Are you afraid of the dark?" The sound of chattering teeth paused for a second, then became more pronounced. Well, why was he so scared? Ningxi patted her buttocks and stood up, walking towards the little boy. Chapter 4, Rescuing a Little Boy. The little boy was terrified by her sudden appearance, and his face turned pale. However, Ningxi simply sat down next to the small boy without doing anything, closed her eyes, and started to doze off. Tonight, she had been dragged around by Changli, accompanying people to drink, and her headache was unbearable. After a short nap, when Ningxi woke up, she felt warmth by her legs. She looked down and saw that the little boy had somehow moved closer to her, and his small hand was gripping her clothes. Ningxi chuckled. Back in the countryside, she had raised a cat that was especially timid and afraid of people. But as long as you didn't pay it any attention, let it relax, and feel that you posed no threat, it would sneak up to you, and even climb onto your lap to sleep. The little boy sensed her gaze and his face turned slightly red, but this time, his eyes weren't filled with panic. Instead, they were full of goodwill. He was just like a little kitten, even his gaze was similar. Ningxi's lips curled, and she couldn't resist reaching out to ruffle the fluffy little head. However, as soon as she touched him, she immediately changed her expression. Why was his forehead so hot? You have a fever? Changli had locked her up at least until after the audition the next day, maybe even longer. If this child continued to have a high fever, it could be dangerous. Just as she was getting anxious, she noticed something strange. The light bulb had gone out, but there was still some light in the room. She raised her head and discovered a small skylight above her. Dim starlight was pouring in from outside. Ningxi searched the room and found a ladder. Little guy, come here, and I'll help you get out. For the first time, the child responded to her words but shook his head, his gaze determined. Ningxi understood his meaning and smiled as she pinched his cheek. You're quite loyal, huh? Do you want to share the hardships with me? Go on, the window is too small for me to get out. You go first and find someone to rescue me. Seeing the child still hesitating, Ningxi picked him up and placed him on the ladder. Hurry up, be a man, don't dawdle. I'll stay down here to protect you. Finally managing to send the child outside, Ningxi's head spun, and she lost her balance, tumbling down the ladder. Beside the window, the little boy watched the scene in shock, his face showing a tremendous fear. Ningxi forced out a word, go. In the starlight, the woman's face appeared pale and haggard, but her stunning beauty couldn't be hidden. Especially her eyes, clear and delicate, like a pool reflecting the stars. She was no longer the country bumpkin and ugly duckling from years ago. But what was the use? Ningxi sighed bitterly. Her greatest revenge remained unfulfilled, and she might die here. However, at least she had saved a little boy before dying. If her child had survived that car accident 5 years ago, they might have been around this age. After the accident, the Ning family, embarrassed by her, had sent her to a shabby university in the M country that accepted spoiled rich kids and left her to fend for herself. She dropped out and reapplied to the University of Southern California, feverishly absorbing various knowledge. Because she wanted to defeat Ningxuelo, and reclaim everything that was rightfully hers. Most importantly, acting was her lifelong dream. After returning to China, she joined Starlight Entertainment, the largest talent agency in the industry, thanks to her looks and solid acting skills, as recognized by Chongli. Her path to stardom should have been smooth, but Ningxuelo followed her to Starlight Entertainment and used Chongli to suppress her at every turn. Chapter 5, The Young Master is Found. At the same time, in the private room at Eaton Bar, the atmosphere was incredibly tense. The bar owner, manager, security personnel, and other staff members stood nervously in a row, all wearing expressions of impending doom. The reason for this tension was the disappearance of the little heir of the Land Group, Lan Tingxiao's beloved son, in their bar. On the couch, Lan Tingxiao's expression remained as cold and emotionless as ever, exuding a formidable aura that made everyone present tremble, their legs shaking, and sweat pouring down as they dared not utter a word. Kneeling by his feet was a young man who was crying his heart out. "Big brother, I'm sorry, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have brought little treasure to the bar. If anything happens to him, I won't live anymore." As soon as he finished speaking, a kick landed on his chest. The bone-cracking sound made everyone's scalp tingle, and all those present trembled. Lan Jingli, clutching his chest, coughed violently for a while but immediately got up and straightened his back, kneeling properly again. At this moment, his parents were on vacation abroad and had no idea that little treasure had gone missing. If they found out, it wouldn't be as simple as getting kicked by his brother. He would probably be skinned alive. Lan Jingli was feeling hopeless, and the door to the private room suddenly banged open. The bar owner, closest to the door, opened it absent-mindedly, and to his surprise, there was no one at the door. Baffled, he lowered his gaze, and then his eyes widened in astonishment. Little young master? Little treasure? My goodness. Little treasure. Where on earth have you run off to? Lan Jingli rushed over, his eyes filled with tears, and he tightly embraced the little boy, overcome with excitement. Everyone in the room had expressions as if they had just survived a catastrophe. Lan Tingxiao walked to the door in a few strides, grabbed Lan Jingli by the back of his collar, and threw him aside. Then he crouched down in front of his son. "What's wrong?" Finally free from his second uncle's grasp, little treasure grabbed his father's hand and anxiously tried to pull him outside. As Lan Tingxiao got closer to his son, he smelled alcohol on him. Besides the strong odor of alcohol, there was also a faint, elusive fragrance, not the overwhelming scent of perfume, but more like the fragrance of flowers blooming in an ice valley, emitting a gentle and delicate scent. It made him feel strangely familiar, even causing his heart to skip a beat for a moment. Seeing that Lan Tingxiao wasn't moving, little treasure pointed in a certain direction, his small face filled with urgency. Lan Tingxiao picked up his son and walked directly in the direction he had indicated. Behind them, Lan Jingli and others looked at each other in confusion, and they all followed. 5 minutes later, the group stopped at the entrance to the warehouse on the top floor. Little treasure wriggled out from his father's arms and started to bang on the warehouse door, looking extremely anxious. "What's wrong with little treasure? What's inside?" Lan Jingli was baffled. Lan Tingxiao, with an expressionless face, ordered, "Open the door." "Yes, yes, yes." The bar owner nodded vigorously and then turned to reprimand the female manager standing next to him. "Manager Yi, what are you standing there for? Hurry and open the door. Where are the keys?" Open the door?" The female manager froze. "Oh no. That woman, Ningxi, is still locked inside. She promised Chongli that she would keep her locked up until the audition ended. But with the two divine figures from the Land family and the owner waiting, she couldn't say no. She shakily took out the keys and opened the door. As soon as the door was opened, they saw a woman lying unconscious on the ground. "What's going on? Why is there a woman inside?" The owner exploded in anger. I don't know. There was no one inside when I checked earlier." The female manager explained, her voice trembling with guilt. Hurry. Let's save her first, and then talk. As someone approached Ningxi, Little Treasure immediately pounced on her, his small face contorted with a fierce expression, forbidding anyone from getting close.